It's safe to say that the general opinion is after SmackDown vs. Raw 2007, the series started to nosedive. But why? I mean, they couldn't have changed that much in a year, could they? Let's dive into SmackDown vs. Raw 2008 and try to find out why it couldn't live up to its predecessor. This year's game features the newly resurrected ECW brand, bringing along some newcomers to the franchise including Tommy Dreamer, CM Punk, Elijah Burke, and Sabu. Sandman also makes his one and only appearance in the series, and yes, he makes his entrance through the crowd, which is a really nice touch. This would also mark the debut of MVP, Kenny Dykstra, and Marcus Corvon. It would also be the last time we saw Bobby Lashley, Gregory Helms, and Torrie Wilson. Jeff Hardy makes his comeback, appearing in his first title since Shut Your Mouth, and Johnny Nitro would appear in later games as John Morrison. Though Chris Benoit was scheduled to appear in the game, he was removed after the tragic events that took place. Overall, the roster is a little inaccurate here, which is to be expected, but going from around 70 wrestlers in 2007 to around 50 here is just kind of a letdown. Again, the arena selection is very good and represents a wonderful time for stage designs in the company. With ECW being featured, there are a few arenas representing the brand as well as other familiar weekly shows and pay-per-view events. This would be the last time we saw the SmackDown Fist Stage and the Raw Slanted Titantron set designs featured as default arenas for their respective brands, as the WWE would undergo their high-definition overhaul and feature a more mainstream, flashy look. The wrestlers' entrances haven't really changed much, and there hasn't really been any graphical changes other than some minor lighting improvement. The animations are still very smooth and for the most part mimic their real-life counterparts perfectly, but there is still the occasional awkward-looking animation every so often. The control layout still features the analog system that was introduced in the last game, but not everything remains untouched, with some changes here and there to the button configuration. Holding the right bumper while tapping the right analog stick up or down will initiate a strong grapple, while moving it left or right will perform an ultimate control move. The run command has now been moved to the left bumper in combination with the left analog stick. The Y button is now your finisher, and Irish Whip is now performed by simply pressing B. New for this year is the presence of fighting styles. Each wrestler is equipped with two different fighting styles, one which can be selected as your primary, leaving the other as your secondary. There are 8 fighting styles in total, and they consist of High Flyer, Brawler, Submission Artist, Hardcore, Powerhouse, Showman, Dirty, and Technical. One of the biggest problems with this new feature is the fact that many of these fighting styles would limit a wrestler's moveset, resulting in superstars lacking certain moves and abilities, while other fighting styles would simply overpower a wrestler. For example, the Powerhouse style gives wrestlers an unfair advantage, including Rampage mode, which grants a short period of adrenaline, resulting in moves that the opponent can't block or reverse. Also, these Powerhouse wrestlers can kick out of pins instantly with the push of a button, even right after a finisher. Some of the other abilities here include Dirty wrestlers being able to argue with the referee or use the referee as a shield, High Flyers being able to perform possum pins, Showmen being able to steal opponents' finishers, and Technical wrestlers having the ability to perform diving moves outside of the ring, among others. Some of these styles are a little more balanced than others, but ultimately this addition wasn't very well received by fans and as a result was not featured in later titles. Also new is the struggle submission system. Once in a submission hold, a player can move the analog stick to apply more pressure to the hold. There is a little bit of strategy involved here, as if you simply hold the pressure, your wrestler will eventually lose his grip. But if you leave the hold relaxed for too long, your opponent can get the opportunity to escape the hold. While the ultimate control moves themselves aren't new, the ability to escape from them is. When a player is stuck in one of these holds, simply press the X button to strike your opponent. Eventually, your opponent will become stunned, giving you the opportunity to escape the move by moving the analog stick around. This marks the introduction to the Extreme Rules match, dubbed the ECW Extreme Rules match, and though it's extremely similar to a hardcore match, they decided to include both match types in the game. Along with the new match type comes new weapons and the Weapon Select feature during a match. You can select which weapons you would like to feature under the ring in addition to the already standard selections such as ladders and chairs. This would also mark the premiere of weapons that can be set on fire, such as tables and barbed wire 2x4s. The crowd fighting that was introduced in the previous title returns here, and though it's only changed ever so slightly with subtle movement of objects in the area, it's still a very entertaining feature. Though the bar brawl did not return, the parking lot brawl is here, but sadly nothing really has changed. Well, one thing has changed, and that's the ability to get on the fire truck's ladder. It's still possible, it's just not as easy as climbing it whenever you'd like. You have to get both wrestlers to climb up the truck before it will initiate a cutscene, leading to one wrestler being thrown off of the ladder. You can also do this by Irish whipping your opponent into the ladder and performing a finisher. But when it's done this way, the fall from the ladder always tends to lead to a KO. If you didn't know any of this, it's quite easy to just stand atop the truck mashing every single button, completely confused on how to use the ladder. This would be the last time that we see the Buried Alive match in a WWE game, unless you count its appearance in 2K16, though that wasn't really a regular match type, instead it was merely featured in the Showcase mode. Usually this mode is limited to one arena option, but this year you can select from either the No Mercy or Unforgiven arenas. I'm not quite sure why they retired this match type. It's not as fun as, say, maybe Hell in a Cell, but it's still nice to have some variety. Speaking of Hell in a Cell, not much has changed here except for the fact that they placed an invisible boundary around the cell, making it harder to accidentally fall off of. You'll still be able to throw your opponent off of the cell using a grapple at the edge of the cell or using the ultimate control moves. The ladder and TLC is much of the same as well, with only minor changes to the system used to retrieve the object above the ring. This time the grip meter that was used in the previous title has been removed, letting a player hold on to the object as long as they need in order to retrieve it. The table match carries over from 2007 with little to no changes. The only thing I would say it's lacking is more variety in the ways a table can be broken. I mean, most of the table finishers are either DDTs or pile drivers. The Iron Man match has seen its first overhaul in the series, with the 60-minute option being eliminated. Now you can only select from 10, 15, or 20-minute matches. Also, after each and every pinfall, the limb damage sustained by the loser will be reset back to full health, while the wrestler who earned the pinfall will be forced to continue with his unchanged. This makes things a little more challenging as you'll have to work a little harder for each pinfall. The Hall of Fame mode is new and replaces the challenge mode from the previous titles. Here, a player must complete certain tasks, meeting criteria set to unlock points, which in turn unlocks the ability to purchase certain wrestlers from the WWE shop. For example, the Royal Rumble match needs to be completed with the player entering the Rumble as the first entry on the Legend difficulty. This mode almost feels like an early incarnation of what would later become the Showcase mode, as most of these matches focus on real-life rivalries. The Create modes haven't changed much this year. There are more hair options, but they also removed certain other attire options like face paint. One awesome inclusion that didn't make it into the last game is custom music for entrance themes. This completely changed the way I looked at this mode all the way back on Raw 2 for the Xbox, and I'd been waiting for its return ever since. Tournament mode is new but doesn't really offer a whole lot. You can play the King of the Ring tournament, beat the clock sprint, or create a tournament of your own. Last year's Season and GM modes have been combined into one new mode called 24/7. Here you can decide if you'd like to take on the WWE as a wrestler or as a general manager. The GM portion of this mode is pretty much unchanged other than the inclusion of the ECW brand, and unfortunately it would be the last time that we see this mode. On the other side of this mode, things are quite lacking compared to the year before. First off, you can only select from 19 different WWE superstars or one of your own created wrestlers. There are no divas, legends, or ECW wrestlers here. THQ claimed that the limited roster all came down to the quality control regarding the game's voiceovers. The ultimate goal in this mode is to become a legend by winning matches and becoming a popular name within the company. The main problem here is that the story behind this mode is very vague and sometimes left me lost, as during the rare occasion when I did see a cutscene, it often had nothing to do with what I thought was going on with my wrestler. Just like in 2007, you'll have access to stats, news articles, and messages from other WWE wrestlers and staff, but everything seems rushed. I mean, there's even typos in some of these messages. The other big problem here is the statistics system in which you need to keep up on. For example, if your wrestler isn't that great on the mic, you need to partake in certain activities between events that will improve this stat. But these, along with other events like promos and autograph signings, have you sitting back doing nothing while the game simulates what's going on. And the ultimate kicker, they make you spend your hard-earned cash to do this. Another problem is when your wrestler gets injured, the doctor will tell you to rest and take it easy, but you won't actually have the option to do so, which means you'll be wrestling hurt, making it almost impossible to win matches. This mode goes on for way too long and features way too many little tedious tasks for my liking. Another big problem is there's no ability to bounce back and forth between the two modes without losing your progress in the other. I'm sure plenty of people did enjoy this mode, but the overall opinion on it was pretty negative. While it would be very hard for me to call SmackDown vs. Raw 2008 a bad game, I could say it doesn't quite live up to the previous title. The gameplay, look, and match types for the most part are all there, but with the drop in playable wrestlers, the lack of a decent season mode, and very little done to upgrade the game's create modes, it's easy to see why it left a sour taste in some wrestling fans' mouths.
The following contest is scheduled for one fall. On the way to the ring, from Korea, Sexy Girl.